Joining us now, Hogan Gidley. Hogan, the Senior Deputy Communications Director of the White House. He's also the Deputy Press Secretary for the President of the United States. The Hogster, good to have you with us, Hogan.
Thanks so much for having me on. I always appreciate the time, John.
Well, Hogan, I don't want you to get into politics or anything, but a Republican got elected last night in NC9. The Democratic candidate campaigned for 24 consecutive months. He was like a household name. They spent millions of dollars. The Republicans won the seat. The president went there. He did a rally. That's a good thing, right? And it looked like they really got a strong vote out for them. So the president's got to feel pretty good about these two victories today.
Well, he does feel good, but look, the country should feel good because the policies that this president has enacted since he became president of the United States have only gone to make this country better economically, militarily, with the rebuild of our armed forces, the respect and the fear and the admiration we have across the globe is like it's never been in the past. And it's all because of what this president has been able to do. And no matter how much they try and tear that down, you'll notice so many on the left, regardless of their stature within the party, continue to try to tear down this president, but they never talk about what they want to do to the country because it's so radical and so horrible for the American people that they'd rather brush that under the rug and instead try and attack, demean, and destroy this administration.
Well, because they stand for nothing. They don't want anything getting done. I just had Congressman Morgan Griffith on, not a bomb thrower, Southwest Virginia Republican, who said that Nancy Pelosi and the leadership of the Democratic Party is holding up USMCA. They're hurting farmers. They're hurting lives. They're harming people, many of them their own constituents, in their own Democratic-controlled areas, and they're doing it in order to not give the president some political victory. I mean, that's downright sick as far as I'm concerned. It's like Pelosi...
Well, hold on. USMCA, yes. But let's go back for a moment if we can. This has been 2.5 years of a Russian lie. Mm-hmm. Then it turned to a racist lie, and now it's a recession lie. They continue to misrepresent the facts over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about now Democrats playing politics and not wanting to accomplish something for our farmers and our ranchers in the USMCA incredible deal this president structured. What about all the other things we could have gotten done in the first 2 years, because everybody's moving so fast because of Donald Trump has changed the speed of this town into moving like a businessman thinks. They didn't come to the table on infrastructure. They didn't come to the table on border security, health care, drug prices, none of that. The president has done all of this on his own with the help of some people in Congress, but for the most part, he's the one taking the message directly to the American people. He's the one making them change their way of thinking over in the bureaucrats, cave and den here in D.C., where they refuse to come out and work with this president just because they don't like him. He's done all these things, and these are the ones who, for 2 years, have worked to delegitimize a free and fair election just to play politics. The divisiveness with the way the Democrats act and what they're trying to do to split this country wide apart is so egregious and so dangerous. But this president has continued to move forward, raising everybody's life to a new high that they never saw before, despite the fact that not only did they lie about Russia for 2 years, but they refuse to work with a president where people need roads and bridges and infrastructure. People need that. People need someone to address health care costs. People need a secure southern border, and Democrats are nowhere to be found because they'd rather play politics. They don't even want to address the real issues.
Well, Nancy Pelosi is becoming like Marie Antoinette. Let them eat cake. I mean, that's basically her response now. Let people suffer, and let's continue to propagate lies at the expense of the American people. No infrastructure, no USMCA, no other things that could be. Look, we even got Bobby Scott on, who's a Democrat the other day in Virginia, passing bills out of his committee. They just die there. And because anything that even smells like it might be a victory for President Trump, they squash even if it's hurting people. I mean, that is the untold story now of what is going on as Congress comes back in this session. Hogan, Gidley. Hogan, I'm going to change gears a minute so I don't run out of time for this. Where were you, Hogan, on 9/11, and do you remember?
I remember it, and I remember the thoughts going through my head and the tears that were shed for the deaths of so many American citizens. I was actually standing in my office, in the media affairs office for Governor Mike Huckabee, who I worked for 3 or 4 years, and right before I moved to South Carolina, I was with him. He was actually in Kentucky, but I was with him, working in his administration. And I watched that first tower get struck, and my initial thought was it was somebody, because we had just talked about how a lot of people buy small planes, and you never know how you can control them, and sometimes they crash them because they're inexperienced pilots. I thought it was a guy who had just flown into the glass of a building. I wouldn't think anyone was hurt. I thought the guy probably just ran on them with a small plane, and because they're so light, it probably just cracked the window, and the guy just climbed out, and everything was okay. I had no idea it was a full plane. And then as I was watching the coverage, I started to realize how serious it was. When that second plane hit, that's when everyone in the office realized, the gravity of the moment. The governor was in Kentucky, I believe, at the time. He came back in a motorcade, as most governors. I think they were at an RGA event, a Republican Governors Association, or maybe even a National Governors Association event. They came screaming back into town, and it was one of those days that was so dark, and it was a realization, John, that there were people in this world who just want to kill us for being us, because we love freedom, because we are a beacon of democracy and hopes and dreams for the world to look at and aspire to be. So many in this world don't like that, and they want to kill us just for being us. We not provoke them. They attacked us that day, and it's not just the thousands that died in the towers, which is horrific and egregious. It's the people who are suffering today also, still, from the debris, from being injured, being maimed, crippled by rushing in to help fellow citizens, the breathing problems so many of the first responders are experiencing today. It continues to permeate through this country, and I was just out on the South Lawn with the President and the First Lady and our staff commemorating this tragic day, but also the hope on the backside of it, that not only are we wiser and more well-equipped to protect the American people because of it, but like most things, tragedy is not unique to America. But what is unique to America is the fact that we come out of these tragedies stronger, more unified, more prepared, and with a better sense of realization of just how great this country is. And so we should never apologize for that. We should never say to the world, we're sorry for our greatness. We should instead do what the President, Donald Trump, is doing, going around the globe saying, you too can be great. Come with us. Join with us. We don't have to face these types of tragedies again. We can work together, and we can grow together to be a better country. And that's what this day is about for me now. It's so tragic, and it's so sad, and I do shed tears, but it's also one of these moments where you realize we've come so far since then, and there's so much more we can do and that we are doing, and I look forward to where this country is headed.
And Hogan, Corey brought this up. I had him on a couple of minutes ago, and he said so many people don't remember 9/11. It was 18 years ago. He said seniors in high school weren't even around then, and he said it's almost like commemorating the end of World War, the end of the Second World War, in 1960, and that kind of hit me because I hadn't really thought about it that way. I've got 3 children. One of them was 3. One of them was 15. One of them was 5. One of them was 3, and the other one, well, not even around. So it's different, right? The conversation with my 29-year-old is different on 9/11 today than the conversation with my 15-year-old, right? Because 15-year-old is just learning about it in school. 29-year-old was there watching it on TV and wondering what was going to happen. So very different for families, and I'm glad that you brought that up. You know what else I was thinking about, Hogan? I was thinking about Omar Alan from Minnesota, who said, some people did some things. I wonder how she's remembering the events of today. It's interesting.
That's a great question, and one only she can answer. When she kind of laughed at the fact that someone would say Al-Qaeda in a way that was fearful or derogatory. And why don't we talk about the United Kingdom that way? Why don't we say America that way? Why don't we say Canada the same way? Because America and Canada and the United Kingdom aren't like Al-Qaeda. We stand for something that is bigger than all of us. That is the greatness of potential in every human being, every human life. And they don't. They stand for death and destruction. And for her to mock someone for recognizing their history of pushing for terrorism, and then, as you just said, the other comment she made when she just kind of glossed over it and said somebody did something. People set out that day, this day, 18 years ago, with the sole purpose of destroying lives, killing people, and bringing down a nation. While it was the largest terrorist attack on our soil in history, it was a really horrific day on so many levels. They didn't succeed, and they're never going to succeed. As long as people in this country, the greatest idea ever realized, have breath in their lungs to shout from the rooftops and share with the world that this democracy, this experiment, is still probably the greatest thing ever to come to fruition, and that we are, in fact, a beacon of those hopes and dreams. And no one can ever take that away from us, no matter how hard they try.
Well said, Hogan, and thank you for sharing that. Well said. Speaking of protecting the United States, in a series of statements and interviews this week and a press conference with Border Security, those of us in the media learned that by 2020, the Trump administration will have constructed 500, yes, that's 500 miles of wall stretching across the southern border of the United States, taking various dollars out of the pots that we have discussed. That also is not in the fake news. The fact that 64 miles of wall has already been constructed, and they're expected to get 500 by 2020. I've heard from a number of people that is a very real estimate. Where are we on that, and why isn't that getting the coverage that the fact that somebody says that we have an inverted curve or something and we're getting in a recession? Why does the media just cover that honestly?
Again, if we're going to get into a conversation about why didn't the media cover things honestly, that's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Myself and Stephanie Grisham, the press secretary, communications director, we penned an op-ed in the Washington Examiner last week about this very issue. And we pointed out one story that was just rife with editorializing and opinion. And our argument wasn't that you can't write that. It was that put it where it belongs in the paper.
Right.
And that's in the opinion section.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is, I was a journalism major. I was a news reporter for 4 or 5 years, and I never used editorialized words or opinion. I let someone else, give their opinion, and then someone else give the opposite opinion, and then the viewer got to decide. Mm-hmm. No one wants to cover this border crisis unless they can use it to beat up the president. Remember, right. First of all, there was no crisis. It was manufactured by the president. And then when they actually discovered there was a crisis, because people like Jay Johnson in the Obama administration, Mark Morgan in the Obama administration came out and said, if we saw 1,000 people a day, we were overrun and I was furious and it was a crisis. Now you're seeing 5,000 a day. I wouldn't even know where to begin. Mm-hmm. Then the media had to say, okay, there's a crisis. Guess what? It's Donald Trump's fault.
Right.
Well, now that can't make any sense. We're the only ones trying to do anything. We've proposed plan after plan after plan. One of them was 80 points back in October of 2017. And the media refused to cover it unless they can try and beat up the president for it. And then when we do highlight it and all the Democrat congressmen and women go down to the border, they grandstand and take videos and say these conditions are bad. And then we say, okay, well, we put up bills for you guys to vote to improve these conditions, and they vote no on the condition improvements.
It's unbelievable.
So over and over and over again, they don't want to have the conversation because what they want, as the president says, and he's right, they want open borders, they want crime, and they want a dual system. They want a singular system of law enforcement, but they want to apply it differently to these two groups. If you're an American citizen and you violate the law multiple times and you violate court orders, you're going to be in serious, serious trouble.
Right.
Unless you're an illegal alien, and then you get off scot-free, released into our American communities time and time again. It's unacceptable. The American people know it. And if just one more thing, and I have to say this, let's not forget, the Democrat Party wanted to tax you, fine you, if you did not sign up for Obamacare. And if an American citizen didn't sign up for Obamacare, you were going to face a penalty and a fee. You would have to pay money. But if you're an illegal alien, you get health care for free. Now explain that to me.
No explaining it. Try to explain this. How does one federal judge in San Francisco overturn a duly elected president's executive order after that appellate court that he sits on already ruled it in favor of it? How does one judge do a national injunction and affect policy for the entire country? How does that happen?
Well, I hate to say, if I hate to say it this way, but Democrats just refuse to accept or to even consider logic in most instances. But this is one of them. If Barack Obama can create this and open our borders, basically because he has the quote unquote power to do so as president of the United States, then doesn't the next president have the power to stop what he did? I mean, just logically, that would make a whole lot of sense. If you got the power to create something as president, then you would also have the power to take something away as president. The fact is, Barack Obama knew he didn't have the authority or the right to do any of this stuff, and he said it 18 times or something like that, and then just did it anyway. But when the leftist agenda and you have activist judges all over the place trying to push their own personal political agendas onto the American people, and it's a problem. And you said it best. I don't remember voting for that judge. I do remember, however, millions and millions and millions of people voting for Donald Trump. And you live in Virginia. Shows in Virginia, only in this little area of the world near Washington, D.C., is it shocking that someone runs for office on an agenda, gets elected to implement that agenda while he's in office, and then when he's in office begins to implement it. Only here is that a surprise, because I think they're used to politicians running on lies and empty promises and getting into office and then just never coming through, or they're used to them getting into office and then just falling back in line to their donors and everybody else. This president didn't have donors like that. He wasn't beholden to special interests. So he has no constituency except for the American people. That's what he stands up. That's who he stands up for, and that's why he does what he does. And this immigration situation is exactly the crisis that he said it is going to be and will be, and it's exactly the same crisis that he's working to fix. And that's why we've seen a drastic reduction in the numbers, 56% reduction in the last couple of months coming into this country because of what this president has been able to do.
Unbelievable. One judge affecting national policy that no one knows, heard of, or elected. And, of course, now this has got to make its way up to the Supreme Court as well, where all this stuff is eventually going to be solved. But you're right. This is the disruptor. He's doing exactly what he said he was going to do, and they're trying to stop him at every single turn. And it's shameful what is happening. One judge issues a national injunction. I mean, you can't even get your arms around it. Hogan, I'm out of time. Thank you for being with us. Hogan Gidley, Deputy Press Secretary to the President of the United States, Senior Deputy Communications in the White House. Hogan, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, and I want to just say prayers to the people affected still by 9/11 and those first responders who put their lives on the line every day for us across this country. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Hogan. Thank you. John Fredericks Radio Network.